Well, so today RACQ is teaming up with Bicycle Queensland to launch our election campaign on making sure that we get pathways, dedicated bicycle pathways built into future road infrastructure. What we believe is that the safest way forward is for motorists and cyclists to be separate. So it's an amicable separation. It's about us working together to have two different pathways, a bicycle pathway and a roadway for the cars. We believe separation is the safest outcome and the best outcome for road safety in the years ahead.
Does that show that the bike lures that have been so talked about over the last year and implemented are just not up to scratch then? They're not working?
Now look, we have to be fair about this. We're going to have to share the roads forever. I mean, motorists and cyclists, there will always be parts of the road where we can't build the right infrastructure, where we can't get a dedicated cycle lane or a separate bike path. So we have to work on both sides. We have to work on sharing the road and being courteous with each other, and also we have to work on getting the infrastructure right to keep us separate. This isn't a car versus bike. This isn't a motorist versus cyclist. We're all in this together, and that's what we want to talk about today, and that's why RACQ and Bicycle Queensland are doing this together, because it's actually about getting the right policy outcome to save lives.
How feasible is it, I guess, what your request is? Can you dumb it right down for us? Are you saying that just every new bit of infrastructure should include this, or where possible?
You want to go, Ben?
Sure. There'll be situations where there are priorities, and the high priorities are where people need to travel. And it's very likely that there's a school or the city centres of every capital city and every major city in Queensland, people need to ride bicycles. They want to ride them, but currently they don't feel safe, and those separated facilities have been proven internationally to get more people riding and then reduce congestion. And that's what we're here together for today. We want to reduce congestion by getting more people onto bicycles whenever we can.
You say that they don't feel safe on the bikes, but you've already got that 3-foot buffer zone rule. Is this like an adjunct to that, or in addition to that?
Look, we're 6 months into a 2-year trial, but regardless, while a rule is good, what is far better is actually having physical separation. That's proven the world over. That's why people in Northern Europe and Amsterdam and the Netherlands, etc., they're riding their bicycles so regularly and making a real impact on reducing congestion by using a bicycle for transport.
What are those roads that you're talking about that are the key priority spots for your members?
Well, we know that 4,000 bike riders a day ride along Coronation Drive bikeway. So that's a huge reduction in traffic on Coronation Drive because people are down on the bikeway. But we know that if you get a road like Lutwich Road or Wynnum Road, there's either no bikeway or only a poor one. So with the state election on, it's time for both sides of government, of opposition and the government, to say, are we spending enough? Now the spending, frankly, is abysmal. It is less than 1% of the road's budget. So we need to spend more, starting today, to say when we build a new road, we put a bikeway as part of that project.
It's really important that we point out that this is a win-win for motorists and cyclists, because more people riding on safe bike paths means fewer people driving on our roads and eases congestion. So it really is a solution that gives for both sides. It helps us with congestion, it helps us with road safety, it'll save lives, but it'll also make our cities work better. So what we're calling on the next government of Queensland to do, and also councils around the state, is to lock in funding as part of every major road upgrade, lock in funding for a bike path or a separate bike pathway. So that way we will save lives. 9 cyclists died on Queensland roads last year. More than 300 were seriously injured in incidents. The basic fact is, if a car hits a bike, regardless who is at fault, the cyclist will come out worse. This is about road safety, but it also helps that it assists with congestion as well.
There's a lot of debate, and these stories we keep doing because they rate well, because people have a very strong opinion about bikes and cars. Are your members, your drivers, still ahhing about sometimes what they are entitled to do on the roads, especially with the new laws in from January 1st?
Look, there's anxiety on both the side of the cyclists and the motorists when it comes to how they work together on our roads. So that's why we spend so much time talking about sharing the road and talking about courtesy, because it's important no matter what. But what we've also got to take into account is we believe that it's only at the fringes where there's real anger from the cyclists and the motorists. We think most people sit in the middle. They just want the best outcome. They want the safest outcome. They want to feel safe on the road regardless. And it's not a matter of us and them, because literally hundreds of thousands of RACQ members are cyclists as well. So, and most cyclists own a car. So it's not two camps. It's all about us working together to get the best road safety outcome. That's what this is about. The governments have been, both the government and opposition talk about road safety. We think this is a major step forward. These are vulnerable road users. They need to be protected. The best way is through separation.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry. You say that you want to encourage people to get out of their cars and ride bikes. Is it really going to happen in a place like Brisbane?
What we found overseas, and the research shows us, is where the infrastructure is built, people will ride, and that many people here in Queensland are not commuting to work, for example, on a bicycle because they don't feel safe. That's it in a nutshell. So if we offer the best alternatives, it's like public transport. We need a mix of options so that people can choose the one that works best for them, and then all of those work together to make congestion better and make our city work better. So whether it's cycling, public transport, or our roads and individual motorists, we've got to make it work as well as we can, and it benefits everybody.
It wasn't that long ago in Queensland's history when we did have incredibly high cycle use because bikes were just part of our lives. Now that's dropped off the agenda, but introducing bikeways will reintroduce it to the agenda, which means that if a person has a long trip, you're right, they might not ride a bike. But when there's a short trip of 5 kilometres or less, which is actually the vast majority of trips that people take in cars, they might seriously think about doing it on their bike, and international evidence shows they will transfer to a bicycle.
You were talking a bit before about the comparative spending between what cars and roads have spent on them and bicycles. Can you run those numbers through us again? And is this unfair? Has it been unfair up to now?
The expenditure on the bicycle, the spending on bikes is less than 1%. Right? It's actually just over 0.5% of the Transport Department's budget. So when we're getting well over 1% of people are using bikes, and then sometimes up to 8 or 9% in certain areas of Brisbane and throughout Queensland, that's a significant reduction in road use by cars, and that's to the benefit of all. So we're asking the state government to double the funding, to bring back some of the cuts that they did take out in the last from the last term, and bring the budget up to a miserly 1.4%, because that's how many people are cycling regularly now. So that's doubling the budget, but it's still just over 1% of the total transport budget, which is not a lot of money.
What is that in terms of dollars, do you know?
It's $124 million at the moment. We're asking it to go to 240 over the entire state over 4 years. Now the road budget is $18 billion. So it's a drop in the ocean to make a really big difference for a lot of people who'll ride a bike instead.
You know, often it's about priorities, and all too often we get an either-or outcome. And what we're saying today is it shouldn't be either-or. It shouldn't be just either you get the road or the bikeway. They should be together. They should be part of the same infrastructure package. That way we get the best outcome for everyone.